My name is Nickel, Nickel, and this is something that was sent in over on the Discord server by someone named Guy. And before I start, I want to give a huge thank you yet again to Human Mint, who helped me out with a translation for this video. Because if it wasn't for Human Mint's help, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be as accurate. So this is actually pretty cool. I'm sure some of you guys remember when I was building a Gundam over on Twitter, and I saw that someone had custom modded their Gundam build to make it look like a Diva Mech. And this isn't the same thing at all, but if you were interested in that, you're probably going to be interested in this. So anyway, this video is entirely in Korean, and it showcases what look to be a lot of custom-made Overwatch themed Legos. And the translated title of this video is Characters of Overwatch Made with Lego. And the guy who created this is called Pig Brother. And as you're watching the video, if you could have any of these, make sure to write down below in the comments which character you would want the most. The description of this just says Lego creator Pig Brother's 2016 Overwatch series video, and then has a link to his blog and Facebook. So right at the beginning, it has this message that says, creation story made with Lego. So I'll walk you guys through this. The guy who created this, Pig Brother, obviously has a lot of very specific Lego parts where you can actually see he has all of these drawers full of these specific parts. And the first one that he shows here is Genji. So the name of the project is just Overwatch Genji. The release date of this was back in August. And according to this, it took 9 hours to create, made with over 300 pieces. So you can see it's Genji. It looks just like Genji. And you don't really see him put together all the small pieces, but he kind of just adjusts it and then creates the sword. It would be kind of cool to see him build the entire thing from scratch, but he didn't make it that way. The closest thing you get to that is when he puts the sword together. And this Genji has a surprising amount of articulation because he goes from his normal stance all the way to this pose where it looks like he's drawing a sword from his back. The next one he shows is for Bastion, and the information that's on screen here is a lot of the same stuff that was for Genji, except it applies to the Bastion project instead. So this one was made at a different date in August, and it took 11 hours to make and used 600 pieces. So in order to make this Bastion one, it took twice as many pieces as that Genji one. And the fact that everything built with Legos already has a geometric look to it, and that Bastion is an Omnic that has a somewhat geometric look to him, it really fits. If I just saw this at a distance and I didn't know it was made out of Legos, I'd probably think that it's just a cool Bastion toy. I mean, it even has Ganymede, and his head looks exactly like it's supposed to, and one of his arms already has the gun built onto it. It's pretty spot on, like you'll find that most of these are. And something I didn't mention on the last one is when he's adjusting everything with his hands, that gives you a relative idea of the size of this thing. I don't know how big of a person is that made this, but just based on general hand sizes, this thing is pretty huge. At least a lot bigger than I originally thought when I saw it standing alone. And then, as you guessed it, probably the most insane part about the Bastion one is that this thing can actually turn into his turret form. It just looks like it takes a really long time to do that because there's so many pieces you have to move. But regardless, that's still crazy that he built it so it could even do that. Next up, he has Reinhardt, but he starts it off without the shoulder pad, and then he shows you him putting it on. And then he detaches the arm, I'm guessing so you can see how it actually holds the hammer. And yeah, there actually is a hammer for this. It's that right there. For his Diva one, it's a little bit different. Rather than having one really complex figure that can transform into 2 different modes, like Bastion, he actually builds 2 separate modes. So he builds one for Diva's Mech and one for Baby Diva. And since it is 2 separate builds, the little panel where it shows the information reflects that. This one was actually built more recently and took 18 hours to complete and required 2,800 pieces. That's a huge jump up from Genji, which we started with, which took 300 pieces. But it makes sense since the Diva Mech unit looks huge, especially when he picks it up and shows you the back of it. And this part honestly is insane. I really didn't think that he was going to be able to put Diva in the mech, but he actually did do that. So if you see here, he has to open up the top of it to get her in there, but I didn't think she was going to be able to fit in there anyway, by any method of entry. But yeah, he actually has Diva inside of the mech piloting it. That probably took a lot of planning, just like the Bastion one and a lot of the other stuff that he's made. And if you notice how he put it together, she even has the 2 joysticks to hold on to while she's in the mech. He actually has a lot more of these, and I'm not going to go too in depth with the rest of them, but if you're interested in stuff like this, you should definitely consider checking out his channel. There's a link to it down below in the description of this video. Just a quick look to mention what else he's made. He's done one for Mercy, Torbjorn, complete with turret as you would expect, Soldier 76, and Reaper, among a bunch of other characters. And the cool thing with some of these, like the one with Soldier 76 and Reaper and a few others, is that he actually shows you the character sheets. So you can see the actual Blizzard character sheet where it shows the different color values and the hex number associated with them, so he can go and find the pieces that fit that color scheme. That's probably part of the reason why they look so accurate, because color plays a huge role. So anyway, let me know down below in the comments if you could have any of these, which one would you want the most? I'll take a look down below in the comments to see which ones were most popular. This next story is is about Korean esports, and quite a few people wanted me to at least mention this. Over on the official Gosu Gamers website, a post about the situation had this statement that kind of summed it up. It said, the world's 7th ranked team, that being an Overwatch team, Lunatic High, will be swapping out Lita June and Dean in response to multiple online affairs with female fans. An apology was written out and posted on the Lunatic High website, which can be found here, written in Korean. So apparently these two players were having online affairs with female fans, and because of that, their punishment was being swapped out of the rest of OGN Apex Season 2. And most of the commotion about this seems to be around the issue of people debating whether or not them being removed from the season was a fair move, whether they deserve what happened to them, or if their actions weren't enough to warrant that. It sounds like that's the main argument here. Over on the competitive Overwatch subreddit, a few people were trying to explain this, including this post by TIS Robin that said, LTJ was found flirting with his fans online. He dated one of the girls offline as well. Still, that in itself is not really a significant problem, although teenage fangirls may disagree, and certainly does not warrant being banned from his team for over a month. And then later on in the post, he talks about how there's a lot of contradiction from what one of the players said in his own stream versus what he did. And then he ends the whole thing by saying, now does this justify his 2-month suspension? But there is more to the situation than a dude flirting with one girl and then dating another. In an entirely separate thread by Tenadan titled, I'm Korean, I want to help you understand the LH punishment. He said, Lee and Dan did 2 serious faults, not just playing with women. It is the biggest cause of punishment. Lee has appealed to his high moral standards several times through his broadcast. He said he never allowed fans private access and blamed the morally disruptive pro. And at the start of his post, he's saying that the ban wasn't just because of Korea's relatively high moral standards and how strictly they're enforced. It had to do with issues outside of that. But as I always say with this kind of stuff, there's always more to the story that you can look into on your own if you're interested, but this is just what was submitted through the Discord. And it was a pretty strange thing to see in Korean Overwatch esports. One last thing before I go, if any of you guys want to submit stories for me to talk about in future videos, all you have to do is go to the Discord link that is in the description of this video, and once you're there you can read how to submit news. If you haven't already turned on notifications for the channel, it would help out a lot if you hit that bell, check that box, and push save. That way you'll have notifications on. So if you did that, thanks a ton. And that's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. And if you haven't checked out some of these other videos on the channel, you can click on them to check them out, whether you're on PC or on mobile. Either way, it still works now. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.